I turned 23 the morning my childhood house felt smaller than it ever had. The walls were the same faded beige, the living room smelled faintly of lemon cleaner, and the sagging sofa still had the same coffee stain from when I was 10. Nothing had changed except me. My father, Leonard, stood in the center of the room like a judge waiting to deliver a verdict. He didn't bother with a birthday card. Instead, he extended a thin, flat envelope toward me, as if handing over paperwork to an employee he didn't plan on keeping much longer. "Thought you should have this," he said. No warmth. No emotion. Just expectation. My younger brother Joel watched from the recliner, smirking like he already knew what was inside. My mother hovered near the dining room doorway, wringing her hands around the dish towel she carried everywhere like a security blanket. She looked nervous, not for me, but of the possibility that Leonard would explode if anything went off script. I opened the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper. An eviction notice. My breath snagged. "You're kicking me out?" "You're a grown man," Leonard replied. "Time to stop freeloading and figure out what you're actually good at, since it clearly isn't what I tried to teach you." He meant the construction business. His business. The one he always insisted I would take over, even though I hated every second of it. The noise, the dust, the rigid schedules, the way he barked orders as though feelings were optional. Joel let out a laugh, low and satisfied. He loved this. He had always been the golden son, the athlete, the charmer, the one who mimicked Leonard's opinions like a parrot who thought he was a hawk. My mother stepped forward like she wanted to say something, but Leonard's sharp glance froze her where she stood. She lowered her eyes. That somehow hurt worst of all. I didn't argue, didn't plead. Didn't ask why my own father would rather shove me out than ask what I wanted out of life. Instead, I folded the eviction notice, placed it back in the envelope, and slipped it into my jacket pocket. "Fine," I said quietly. "I'll go." I leaned in and kissed my mother's cheek. She trembled beneath the touch. Joel snickered something under his breath. Leonard crossed his arms, satisfied. As I walked out the front door for the last time, sunlight hit my face like a dare. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a home. But I had freedom. And I had a secret they knew nothing about. If they had known what I was building in the shadows of my old life, they never would have pushed me out the door. I didn't go far that first night. I drove to the edge of town, parking my old hatchback beside an abandoned gas station that had been empty since I was a kid. The paint on the sign had peeled away, leaving only faint ghosts of letters. A fitting place for someone trying to shed an old version of himself. I reclined the seat, staring at the dashboard like it might tell me what to do next. I had $312 to my name, a half-full tank of gas, and a duffel bag of clothes that still smelled faintly of my family's detergent. No apartment lined up. No job. No path that would make sense to anyone except me. But beneath all that uncertainty, there was a spark, small but fierce, that had kept me going for months. My secret. 6 months before the eviction, after one of Leonard's rants about real work, I started sneaking out to the library late at night. Not to read about construction or business or anything he would call practical. I went there to learn something else entirely, an obsession that had quietly taken root in me years ago. Restoration. Not buildings or cars or antiques. Vintage tech. Old radios, retro game consoles, busted cameras, analog equipment with circuits that hummed like memories. I loved bringing dead machines back to life. I loved the hidden stories inside every component, the puzzle solving, the patience it demanded. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't lucrative. But it was the first thing in my life that felt like mine. Leonard always mocked it. Called it tinkering like I was a toddler playing with Lego. Joel said it was a phase. My mother never said anything at all. 2 months before getting kicked out, I met someone who saw value where they didn't. His name was Marcos, a former electronics engineer who ran a tiny online shop selling refurbished tech. He found me in an online forum after I posted photos of a 1980s radio I repaired. He messaged me late at night with an offer. "You're good. If you want to learn more, I could use a partner." I thought it was a scam until we video called. Marcos was older, soft-spoken, the type of person who fixed things like it was a form of meditation. He taught me soldering techniques, circuit diagnostics, and how to source rare components from obscure suppliers. We worked quietly, digitally, like two ghosts passing notes in the dark. We'd been building something together, a small online refurbishing shop that was just starting to gain traction. Orders were coming in faster than we could keep up. But I hadn't told my family. They wouldn't have believed me even if I had. That first night sleeping in my car, I looked at the glowing screen of my phone. 3 new orders. 5 unread messages from Marcos. And one thought pulsing steady in my chest. This exile might have been the push I needed. But I had no idea that my father's attempt to throw me away would become the very thing that forced me into a future he never saw coming. The next morning, sunlight leaked through the cracked windshield of my hatchback, waking me long before I was ready to face the world. My back ached from the cramped sleep, but strangely, my mind felt sharper than it had in months. Maybe years. I opened my phone and thumbed through the notifications. Marcos had sent a string of messages. Got your repairs from last week. Beautiful work. A collector wants the refurbished camera you posted, offering double. We need to talk about scaling. You free today? Scaling. A word Leonard would have laughed at if it came from my mouth. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. My hair looked like a neglected broom. My eyes were shadowed from lack of sleep. But there was something else there, determination. Maybe even a hint of excitement. I drove to a small coffee shop on the edge of town. Not because it was special, but because it had outlets, Wi-Fi, and a barista who never judged people who looked like they lived out of their car. I ordered the cheapest drink on the menu and slid into a corner booth. When Marcos joined the video call, he immediately frowned. You look like you fought a raccoon, he said. Close, I replied. I fought my father. He didn't laugh. Marcos wasn't the laughing type. He tilted his head, studying me. He kick you out. I nodded. Marcos leaned back, arms crossing. Then it's time. For what? To stop playing small. I blinked at him. Marcos, I'm broke. I slept in my car. I don't think big is in the cards right now. He ignored my sarcasm completely. I've been watching the orders, he said. We're getting more demand than we can handle. People trust your work. They like your style. And vintage tech is exploding right now. Nostalgia is a currency. But we're just 2 guys on opposite sides of the state, I said. For now. Marcos tapped something on his screen. But I've been sketching ideas. Repairs, restorations, sourcing rare components. We could expand. Teach workshops. Sell custom builds. Open a physical shop someday. A physical shop. A place that was mine instead of Leonard's. A place where I didn't have to pretend to be someone else. My heart thumped. Before we get ahead of ourselves, I said slowly, I need somewhere to live. Marcos nodded once, like he already expected that answer. I know someone renting out a room cheap. He owes me a favor. Place is rough around the edges, but cheaper than your car. High bar, I joked weakly. He didn't smile, but his eyes softened. You're not alone, kid. Not anymore. I sat back, stunned by the generosity of someone who wasn't even related to me. Someone who had no obligation to help yet chose to anyway. I didn't know it then, but taking that room would set off a chain of events that would tear open secrets in my family, secrets they never expected me to uncover. The room Marcos found for me belonged to a retired mechanic named Elias, who lived in a crooked 2-story house on the outskirts of town. The place leaned slightly to the left, like it had spent decades fighting the wind and losing. The porch steps creaked under my weight, and one of them had a warning sign taped to it. Step wrong and you'll meet God. I knocked. The door swung open immediately. Elias was a wiry man with a beard that could exfoliate concrete and a stare that could diagnose your soul. He smelled faintly of gasoline and peppermint, a combination I didn't know could coexist. You must be the tech kid, he said, squinting at me. Brent, I corrected. And yeah, I fix stuff. Good. I hate stuff that's broken. He stepped aside. Room's upstairs. Don't touch the jar in the hall. That's my lunch. I decided not to ask what kind of lunch lived in a jar. The room was tiny, a bed, a desk, a window that didn't fully close, and wallpaper peeling in strips like sunburned skin. It was nothing glamorous, but after sleeping in my car, it felt like a palace. How much? I asked. Elias shrugged. Marcos said you're decent. 50 a week. Work off the rest by helping in the garage when I need an extra pair of hands. 50 a week. My eyebrows nearly fell off my face. That's insanely cheap. He shrugged again. Cheap rent means you stay longer. I get company. You get a roof. Everybody wins. I moved in that night. For the first time in days, I exhaled fully. Once my duffel bag was unpacked, I set up the tools I'd been carrying around. Soldering iron, magnifier lamp, tiny screwdrivers, spools of wire. My entire life now fit on a rickety desk, and somehow, that didn't feel pathetic. It felt simple. Clear. As I organized everything, My phone buzzed with a new message from Marcos. I sent you a package. Should arrive tomorrow. Consider it your first real project. I texted back. What is it? He replied instantly. You'll see. Cryptic. Typical Marcos. The next day, a battered cardboard box showed up on the porch. Elias poked it with a wrench like it might explode. It's yours, he said. If it bites, I claim no liability. Inside the box was an old camcorder. Heavy, scratched, and older than me. But the moment I picked it up, something felt off. Not wrong. Just strange. There was a piece of tape on the bottom. A handwritten note underneath. One word. Look. My pulse jumped. I flipped open the battery compartment and found a tiny folded piece of paper wedged inside. I didn't know it yet, but whatever was written on that paper would drag me right back into the one place I thought I'd escaped forever. The folded paper was yellowed at the edges, like it had been hidden inside the camcorder for years. I unfolded it carefully, expecting maybe an old receipt or forgotten note from its previous owner. But no, it was a phone number. Nothing else. Just 10 digits, written in rushed, uneven handwriting. I frowned. Marcos didn't mention anything about this. Elias appeared in my doorway without knocking, chewing on what looked suspiciously like a peppermint-infused celery stick. Package give you trouble? Just weird, I said, handing him the paper. He squinted at it. Phone number. Old one, too. Area codes from upstate. Any idea why it'd be inside a camcorder? Elias shrugged. People hide stranger things. Found a whole engagement ring inside a carburetor once. Guy said he was thinking. Never explained more. I turned the camcorder over in my hands. The screws were stripped, the lens scratched. Someone had tinkered with it before me, but not skillfully. Almost like they'd been desperate. Maybe it belonged to the previous owner, I said. Maybe, Elias replied, already losing interest. Dinner in an hour. If the stew bubbles, it's done. If it moves, don't eat it. He disappeared, leaving me with the camcorder and the mysterious number. I plugged the device into my makeshift power supply. The screen flickered once, then slowly came to life. Static at first. A dull hum. Then a menu appeared, glitchy but readable. There were 3 video files. 2 looked corrupted. But the third was labeled with the same 10 digits as the phone number on the paper. My stomach tightened. I pressed play. The screen filled with the dim interior of a garage, oil stains, tools scattered everywhere, a workbench cluttered with half-dismantled electronics. The camera shook, like the person recording was nervous. Then a man stepped into frame. I didn't recognize him at first. Mid-40s, tired eyes, calloused hands. He kept glancing toward the door like he expected someone to burst in. His breath sounded uneven, panicked. This is my insurance, he whispered. If anything happens to me, if I disappear, someone has to know what he's doing. He swallowed hard, rubbing his forehead. He's not what he seems. People think he's a respectable businessman, but they don't know the debt, the threats, the way he. The audio crackled, and the video cut out abruptly. I froze, because in the last second, right before the screen went black, the man stepped closer to the camera, and the light hit his face. And I knew exactly who he was. It was one of my father's former employees. One who vanished 2 years ago without explanation. And suddenly, the phone number hidden inside the camcorder wasn't the strangest part. It was the realization that someone had wanted this message to find me. I replayed the video 3 times, hoping I'd misinterpreted it. But the man in the recording was unmistakable. Harlan Pike, my father's former foreman. A man who had practically lived at my house during my early teens because Leonard trusted him more than anyone else. He used to bring us candy on Fridays, used to joke that he knew our family better than we did. Then, out of nowhere, he disappeared. Leonard claimed Harlan left for personal reasons. Everyone in town accepted that explanation because Leonard said it with the confidence of a man who expected no follow-up questions. But seeing Harlan on that grainy recording, trembling like a hunted animal. Yeah, nothing about his disappearance was personal. I stared at the phone number again. My thumb hovered over the call button, but hesitation stopped me cold. What if the number didn't work? What if it did? What if whoever was on the other end wasn't Harlan at all? I needed answers, but not reckless ones. Marcos called right then, his timing uncanny. You get the package? He asked. Yeah, I said slowly. Did you find anything inside it before sending? No. Why? His voice sharpened. Something wrong. I hesitated. Marcos was trustworthy, but I wasn't sure if dragging him into whatever this was would put him at risk. And honestly, I wasn't even sure what this was. Just odd, I said vaguely. Old camcorder. Weird files. Marcos hummed. Bring it to the shop this weekend. I'll help examine it. But listen, be careful. People hide things for a reason. He didn't know how right he was. That night, after Elias stomped upstairs to sleep in the room with the loudest floorboards known to mankind, I sat at my tiny desk, camcorder open, circuits splayed like guts across an operating table. But I couldn't focus. Harlan's shaking hands. His terrified whisper. The way he said, if I disappear. I took a deep breath and tapped the phone number into my contacts list. I didn't call it. Not yet. Instead, I ran the number through a few online reverse lookup tools. Most of them came up empty. One, however, returned a surprising result. The number had been disconnected 18 months ago, almost exactly when Harlan vanished. My pulse thudded. Someone had placed this camcorder in circulation intentionally. Someone wanted it found. But why send it to me? I tried to sleep, but my mind wouldn't shut off. Around 2 a.m., I gave up and went downstairs to grab water. As I passed the living room window, something made me freeze. A dark car sat idling across the street. Headlights off. Just watching. I moved slowly to the side, heart pounding. And as I watched, the car drove away. Silent, slow, deliberate. That was the moment I realized my father's decision to push me out wasn't the end of our story. Someone out there was making sure it was only the beginning. I barely slept after seeing that car. Every creak of the old house sounded like footsteps. Every gust of wind tapping at the window felt like someone trying to get in. By morning, my brain was a tangled mess of theories, none of them comforting. Elias noticed immediately when I came downstairs for coffee. You look like someone vacuumed your soul out with a shop vac, he said, sliding a steaming mug toward me. Did you hear anything last night? I asked quietly. He raised an eyebrow. Define anything. This house talks more than my ex-wife. I mean outside, I clarified. A car. Someone watching. Elias paused mid-slurp. You sure? I wasn't. Not entirely. But the way the car lingered and then drifted away, it didn't feel random. Pretty sure, I said. He set the mug down slowly. This town's full of looky-loose and weirdos, kid. Probably nothing. But, he leaned closer, lowering his voice. If you see it again, wake me. Something in his tone told me he took this far more seriously than he let on. After breakfast, I went straight upstairs and packed the camcorder into my backpack. Whatever was happening, Marcos needed to see it. And if anyone could extract clues from glitchy footage and dying electronics, it was him. Before I left, Elias called out, "Be back before dark." I'm not a teenager, I said. He grunted. Still doesn't mean you're safe after sundown. Comforting. The drive to Marcos's town took an hour filled with intrusive thoughts and mental replay of Harlan's terrified face. When I arrived at his workshop, the familiar scent of solder and old plastic hit me like a warm blanket. This place was cluttered, chaotic, and somehow soothing. A sanctuary for misfits and forgotten machines. Marcos looked up from his workbench. You brought it. I nodded and handed him the camcorder and the note. He examined both with surgeon-like focus. Who gave this to you? He asked. Some online seller. I lied instinctively. My gut told me this situation needed careful handling, and I wasn't ready to explain Harlan, the video, or the car outside Elias's house yet. Marcos didn't push, but his expression tightened as he noticed the file labeled with the phone number. You opened it? He asked. Yeah. It's disturbing. He connected the camcorder to his diagnostic setup. Lines of code and data flickered across the screen. What are you looking for? I asked. Hidden metadata, he said. Timestamps. Encryption. Anything that tells us when it was last used. A moment later, he froze. What is it? I asked. He pointed to the screen. This file wasn't created when the camcorder was made. It wasn't even created recently. My heart hammered. Then when? Marcos swallowed. 3 days ago. And suddenly, I realized the camcorder hadn't been sitting in someone's attic for years. It had been recorded days before it landed in my hands, which meant someone was still watching. For a moment, I couldn't speak. 3 days ago? That wasn't old news. That was practically live. Whoever recorded that message wasn't some forgotten ghost from my father's past. They were still out there. Are you sure? I finally managed to ask. Marcos didn't look away from the monitor. Positive. The camcorder's internal clock is dead, but the file metadata leaves a trace, a digital fingerprint. Someone tried to scrub it, but not well enough. I leaned on the workbench to steady myself. But Harlan disappeared almost 2 years ago. Marcos's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Then either the video is manipulated. He paused. Or Harlan didn't disappear the way you think he did. A chill ran through me, sharp as ice water. Before I could respond, Marcos clicked a few buttons, and the static from the corrupted files filled the speakers. Harsh, distorted noise that made my teeth clench. "What are you doing?" I asked, checking the other files. "They're damaged, but not beyond repair." I watched him work for nearly 20 minutes, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Occasionally he'd mutter something under his breath. Then, suddenly, a second video file blinked open. This one had no sound, but the image was clear. A close-up of a workbench. Tools scattered everywhere. A hand reaching into frame. Something metallic glinted briefly before the camera jerked and cut to black. "What was that?" I asked. Marcos rewound the footage frame by frame. The metallic object came into view again. At first, it looked like a random tool, until the image sharpened. Not a tool. A key. A key I recognized instantly. It had the construction company's logo stamped on it. My father's company. Why would Harlan have that key on camera? Why record it? Why hide the footage in a camcorder someone would eventually sell? Marcos exhaled slowly. This wasn't an accident. Whoever made these videos wanted them found. But only by the right person. I frowned. "What makes you say that?" Marcos tapped the screen. "Your father's key. Your hometown area code. The recording date. The urgency in Harlan's voice." Then he looked at me, his expression turning grave. "All of it points to one conclusion." My stomach twisted as he spoke the words aloud. "This message was meant for you, Brent." I shook my head. "No. Why me? I wasn't even close to Harlan." "Maybe that's exactly why," Marcos said. "Maybe he trusted you to look deeper." I sank into the nearest chair, unsure how much more weight I could carry. The camcorder. The car watching the house. The key. Harlan's warning. It all felt like the opening act to a story I never asked to be part of. Just then, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket. An unknown number. Same area code as the one inside the camcorder. I stared at the screen as it rang again. And again. When I finally answered that call, I learned that Harlan wasn't the only one who had disappeared. And my family wasn't done with me yet. I didn't want to answer the call. Every instinct screamed at me to let it ring out, to pretend none of this was happening. But something deeper, curiosity, fear, maybe both, forced my thumb to swipe across the screen. "Hello," I said, voice barely steady. Static filled the line, sharp enough to make me pull the phone from my ear. Then faintly a voice emerged. "Brent." My heart stopped. "Who is this?" The voice trembled. It's Nora. You remember me, right? Nora. Harlan's daughter. We'd gone to school together for a few years before she moved away. She used to sit 2 rows behind me in English class, always doodling in the margins of her notebook. I hadn't seen or heard from her in almost a decade. "Yeah," I breathed. "I remember. Are you okay? Where are you calling from?" "I don't have long," she whispered. "I'm not supposed to be using this number anymore." "But you," her voice broke. "You have my dad's camcorder, don't you?" My eyes shot to the device on Marcos's desk. "Yes." "Nora, what's going on? Where is he?" Silence. Then a shaky inhale. He tried to expose something. Something your father was involved in. Something he shouldn't have seen. I felt Marcos's gaze burn into me, but I couldn't look away from the phone in my hand. "What did he see?" I asked. "I don't know everything," she said. "He kept things from me. Said it was safer. But I know this, he wasn't lying. And he wasn't crazy. What happened to him?" I pressed. Another long silence. When she spoke again, her voice was barely audible. "He didn't disappear. He was taken." My chest tightened. "Taken by who?" "People your father owes," she whispered. "People who think your dad still has something they want. Something he supposedly hid years ago." I felt the ground drop beneath me. My father isn't involved in anything like. "Brent." Nora's voice cracked with urgency. "Your dad isn't the man you think he is." I almost told her I already knew that. But she wasn't done. "They're watching you. They know Harlan trusted you. They know you have the videos. You need to leave town before." A loud banging interrupted her sentence. She gasped. No, please, I'm just..." The call cut with a sharp click. Dead silence. I stood frozen, the phone still pressed to my ear long after the line went dead. Marcos stepped closer. "Brent," he said quietly, We need to talk. But I barely heard him. My thoughts spiraled into panic. If Nora had been found because she called me, if Harlan had been taken because he knew something, and if they thought I had whatever they were looking for, then the dark car outside the house wasn't random. Not at all. And when I got home that night, I found something waiting on the porch, something that proved they weren't just watching me. They were already inside my world. The sun was setting by the time I pulled up to Elias's house. The sky was a bruised purple, clouds streaking low like smoke. Every shadow looked suspicious. Every passing car felt like it was slowing down to watch me. When I stepped onto the porch, I froze. A small padded envelope lay on the welcome mat. No postage. No return address. Just my name scrawled across the front in handwriting I didn't recognize. Elias opened the door behind me, holding a bowl of something steaming. Package for you. Smelled it earlier. Doesn't smell like food. Might be safe. I didn't laugh. Anyone drop it off? I asked. Didn't see a soul, he said. But the motion light came on about 15 minutes ago. Thought it was a raccoon. I swallowed hard. Raccoons don't usually leave mail. Depends on the raccoon, he said, slurping his stew. Want help opening it? No, I said quickly. You should stay back. He shrugged and wandered inside, unconcerned. I picked up the envelope with shaking hands and went straight to my room. My pulse thudded in my ears as I tore it open. Inside was a flash drive. Nothing else. Not even a note. Just a simple black USB stick with a tiny red dot painted on the side. My stomach knotted. I'd seen that symbol before, on the side of one of Leonard's storage lockers at the construction yard. A place he told me never to go near. Marcos's voice echoed in my head. Be careful. People hide things for a reason. I plugged the flash drive into my laptop, half expecting it to fry the circuits. But instead, a folder popped open immediately. Only one file inside. A video. I clicked play. At first, all I saw was shaky, dark footage of what looked like a storage unit. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. Then the camera angle shifted, revealing stacks of boxes, some labeled with dates, others with nothing at all. A voice whispered behind the camera. Not Harlan's. Not Nora's. Joel's. My throat closed. He sounded terrified. If someone finds this, tell Brent I tried. The camera zoomed in on a metal container in the corner. A container sealed with the same red dot. Joel's breathing grew loud, panicked. Dad's been hiding this for years. I don't know what's inside, but people have been coming around. Asking questions. And if Dad finds out I'm recording this. A door slammed in the background. Joel gasped. Someone's here. The video cut off abruptly. I sat motionless, staring at the frozen frame. Joel. My brother. The golden boy. The one who laughed when I was kicked out. The one who never cared what happened to me. Now he was terrified enough to send me a secret recording. My hands shook as I removed the flash drive. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't an accident. My family was tangled in something dangerous. And now so was I. But I didn't realize just how deep it went, until someone broke into the house that very night. I barely had time to process Joel's video before the floorboards downstairs groaned under heavy footsteps. Not Elias's usual shuffle. This was slower, heavier, deliberate. I snapped my laptop shut and killed the lights in my room. My heart hammered so violently I was afraid it might give me away. I moved quietly toward the door, every instinct screaming at me not to make a sound. Below, the footsteps paused. Elias's voice barked out, gruff and irritated. If you're selling solar panels, I swear to God. A second voice cut him off. Low. Calm. Too calm. We're looking for a young man. He's staying here. My blood turned to ice. Elias replied instantly, and with surprising force. Never heard of him. A pause. Then the stranger spoke again. That's odd. We have reason to believe he's here. His car is outside. I cursed silently. I'd been too shaken to park down the street. Elias answered with a tone I had never heard from him before. Flat, dangerous. Doesn't matter who you believe is here. Law says you need a warrant to step foot in my house. And you don't look like someone with paperwork. You look like trouble. A chair scraped. A boot thudded. Elias muttered something low under his breath. Something like, not in my damn house. Then a heavy impact rattled the walls. I rushed halfway down the stairs, peering through the railing. Two men stood in the living room. One was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark jacket. The other stayed closer to the doorway, blocking the exit. Neither looked like law enforcement. Elias was on his feet, gripping a wrench like a weapon. The tall man glanced around the house, scanning the shadows. We don't want any issues. We just need to ask him a few questions. Yeah, then leave your number in the mailbox, Elias growled. And try knocking like normal human beings next time instead of skulking around like sewer rats. The man stepped forward. Elias didn't flinch. I had to think fast. If they searched the house, they'd find me in seconds. If I ran, they'd see. Calling the police wasn't an option. Not with the kind of men these seemed to be. They'd vanish before the cops even arrived, and I'd be marked as a target. But then the tall man turned toward the stairs, and his eyes landed right on me. Brent Coleman, he said slowly. Not a question. A confirmation. Elias swung the wrench, sending a ceramic lamp crashing to the floor, creating a momentary distraction. Run, he shouted. I bolted up the stairs, grabbing my backpack with the camcorder and flash drive inside. The front door slammed. Someone sprinted after me. Every step felt like I was running for my life. And as I burst out the back door into the night, I realized someone had already been waiting for me in the shadows. The cold night air hit me like a slap as I crashed through the back door. Gravel crunched under my shoes, loud enough to betray every step. I didn't stop. I sprinted toward the tree line behind Elias's yard, lungs burning, backpack thumping against my side. Brent, someone hissed. I skidded to a stop so fast I nearly fell. A figure stepped out from behind Elias's shed, silhouetted by the moon. My fists tightened, ready to swing if I had to. But then she stepped closer into the faint porch light. Nora. Her hair was pulled back into a messy braid, eyes wide and frantic. Dirt streaked her jeans, and she clutched a duffel bag like it held her entire life. Nora. I breathed, stunned. How did you find me? She shook her head. No time. They trace my call to you. You have to move. A shout echoed from inside the house. Heavy footsteps. A crash. Elias yelling something I couldn't make out. Panic clawed at my throat. We have to help him. Nora grabbed my arm with surprising strength. You can't save him if you get caught too. They're not here for Elias. They're here for you. But why? I demanded. Why me? I never knew anything about my father's mess. Nora's expression twisted with something between pity and fear. It's not just your father's mess. Before I could ask what she meant, the back door slammed open behind us. A beam of a flashlight sliced across the yard, landing on the shed. Go! Nora hissed. We sprinted into the woods, branches whipping at our arms and faces. The men shouted behind us, crashing through foliage. They were strong, fast, and clearly trained. Nora seemed to know the woods better than I did, taking sharp turns, ducking under fallen logs, weaving through tight clusters of trees. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of running, we stumbled into a small clearing. Nora bent over, catching her breath. How did you know where I was? I asked again. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she rummaged in her duffel bag and handed me a small metal object. A key. Not like the one in the video. Smaller. Sharper. And engraved with something familiar. My initials. BC. I stared at it, confused. What is this? My dad told me, Nora whispered, that if anything ever happened to him, I was supposed to find you, that you'd be the only person who could help finish what he started. I shook my head in disbelief. But I didn't know anything. That's the point, she cut in. You were the only one he trusted because you weren't involved. Involved in what? I demanded, frustration and fear crashing together. Nora stepped closer, her voice trembling. In what your father was hiding. In what got my dad taken. She swallowed hard. Brent, the key you saw in the video wasn't the only one. There are more. And they don't open doors. She stared into my eyes. They open evidence. My breath caught. Evidence of crimes your father committed. Before her words could sink in, the sound of snapping branches erupted behind us, closer than before. They had found our trail. And as Nora grabbed my hand and pulled me deeper into the forest, I realized I wasn't running from my father's enemies anymore. I was running from his secrets. We ran until the trees blurred into indistinct shadows and my lungs felt like sandpaper. Finally, Nora pulled me into a narrow ravine hidden by thick brush. We crouched low, listening as distant voices echoed through the forest. They'll keep searching, she whispered. But this trail won't last long. Rain's coming. As if summoned, thunder rumbled in the distance. I tried to steady my breathing. You said my father committed crimes. What crimes? She looked at me for a long moment, as if deciding how much truth I could handle. You remember when the construction business was booming? She asked. When your dad expanded the company in 1 year faster than most do in 10. I nodded slowly. He said it was hard work. Nora's eyes hardened. He said a lot of things. We're not leaving him, she whispered. But we are being hunted. Lightning flashed, and for a fraction of a second, the silhouette of a man appeared between the trees. Watching. Waiting. Not one of the men from the unit. Someone else. Maybe someone Joel trusted. Or maybe someone far worse. And when he finally stepped forward, speaking my name like he'd known me my whole life, everything I thought I understood about who was against us and who wasn't shattered instantly. The silhouette stepped closer, illuminated briefly by lightning. My breath caught in my throat. For a second, I didn't recognize the man at all. His soaked jacket, the rough stubble on his face, the exhaustion in the way he moved. But then he spoke. Brent, it's me. My heart stuttered. Elias. He raised his hands slowly, showing he wasn't armed. Easy, kid. Been tracking you since you bolted out the back door. Shock anchored me in place. Elias? You survived? He snorted. Those idiots couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag. One swung at me, missed, and clocked his buddy instead. Gave me time to slip out the side door. Relief flooded me, until the suspicion followed. Wait, Nora said sharply. If you escaped them, why follow us? Elias shifted, glancing between us. Because I found something. Something your father dropped. He dug into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small plastic card. A key card. Red stripe down the side. The same red marking from the flash drive. I stepped forward, pulse racing. What's that for? Another unit, Elias said. Bigger. Locked tight. Not on any official map. Whoever those men work for, this is what they really want. Joel stirred weakly against the tree. Dad kept everything there. Insurance leverage. Lighting cracked again, and Elias's face hardened. If we don't move now, we're dead. They'll regroup. Nora nodded. We need that ledger. It's the only bargaining chip we have. But something in Elias's expression made unease crawl up my spine. You know more than you've told us, I said quietly. His eyes flicked toward Joel, then back to me. I knew your dad a long time, Brent. Longer than you think. I saw him dig himself into a hole these people helped him build. I warned him to walk away. Then why help me? I asked. Because you're not him, Elias said. And because Harlan trusted you. That was enough for me. My throat tightened. Another snap in the trees. Closer. Urgent. Elias's jaw clenched. We have to move. Train depot first. We get the ledger from whoever Joel trusted. Then we hit this hidden unit before the others do. Nora helped Joel to his feet, slinging his arm over her shoulders. I grabbed my backpack, checking for both keys. Brent, Joel rasped, barely audible. Don't trust everyone. His gaze drifted toward Elias, but before I could ask what he meant, Elias motioned us forward. No time, he hissed. Let's go. Rain hammered the ground as we limped into the darkness. Toward the depot, toward the truth, toward whatever waited behind the doors my father never wanted me to open. I glanced back one last time at the forest behind us. No silhouettes. No flashlights. But I could feel eyes watching. This wasn't over. Not even close. Because now we weren't just running from my father's enemies. We were heading straight toward the biggest secret he ever buried. And whoever was willing to kill for it.